What if the person you can't live without is the very reason you're not fully alive? You tell yourself it's love. You feel the longing in your chest, the ache when they're not around, the thrill when they text you back. But what if, just what if, that feeling isn't love at all? What if it's a biochemical hijacking, a well-dressed neurochemical trick that keeps you clinging to someone not out of deep connection, but out of ancient survival panic? Welcome to the shadowy borderland between love and attachment, where the lines blur and biology doesn't care about fairy tales. The lie we've all bought into. From lullabies to love songs, culture wraps attachment in poetic robes. We praise devotion, we romanticize dependence. "I Can't Breathe Without You" isn't just a lyric, it's an anthem. But beneath the poetic haze, neuroscience offers a sobering translation. Attachment is not necessarily love. In fact, the two may live on opposite ends of a neurological spectrum. Attachment is wired deep into our brains, designed to keep us alive in a dangerous world. Love, true, expansive, soul-enriching love, might not always be the driving force behind the relationships we hold dearest. Often, it's attachment dressed in silk. So how can we tell the difference? Well, let's strip it back to biology. The human brain is a survival machine, not a happiness generator. In our early years, we're entirely dependent on caregivers for food, safety, and emotional regulation. The brain forms powerful bonds to ensure proximity to those who can meet our needs. This system is run, in large part, by two neurochemicals, dopamine and serotonin. Oxytocin, often dubbed the love hormone, is released during cuddling, sex, childbirth, and even eye contact. But its primary function? To facilitate trust and bonding. And then there's dopamine, the reward molecule, reinforces behaviors that promote survival. When you receive affection or attention, your brain lights up with dopamine, encouraging you to seek more of it. Together, these chemicals create a loop. Seek closeness, receive reward, feel safety, and the brain, being efficient, turns this loop into a habit. But there's a twist. This mechanism doesn't evaluate whether the person you're bonding with is good for you. It just knows you feel soothed by them. In other words, your brain may keep you hooked on someone simply because they've become a source of familiar relief, not because they elevate your life. When love becomes a craving. Ever felt that panic feeling at the thought of losing someone, even if the relationship was toxic? That's not love. That's withdrawal. When we bond deeply with another person, especially in inconsistent or emotionally volatile dynamics, we can develop an addictive style dependency. Neuroscientists have found that the brain reacts to breakups and emotional rejection in the same regions activated during drug withdrawal. This is why some people describe heartbreak as feeling like they're dying. In many ways, their brain thinks they are. Psychologists call this anxious attachment, and it's just one style in the framework known as attachment theory. People with anxious attachment often chase validation, fear abandonment, and interpret distance as a threat. Ironically, they may be the most in love in appearance, but in reality, they're the most entangled in the need to be loved, often by someone who won't or can't meet them halfway. Then there's avoidant attachment, people who may pull away or shut down when intimacy gets too real, something that I personally struggle with. But even we aren't immune to the invisible threads of attachment. Our distance is often a defense against early experiences where closeness felt unsafe. Attachment, then, isn't about mutual growth. It's about managing risk. Love, the anti-addiction. In contrast to attachment, love is not primarily about survival. Love is expansive. It doesn't shrink your world to the size of another person. It helps you grow, sometimes away from each other. Love is grounded in presence, not fear. In freedom, not control. The difference becomes clear in conflict. Attachment says, if you leave me, I'll fall apart. Love says, even if we part, I want the best for you. Attachment clings. Love opens. Attachment demands. Love gives. Attachment fears change. Love thrives in transformation. But how many of us know the difference? The inner child still at the wheel. The dirty secret of adulthood is that we're often just kids in bigger bodies, reacting with the same emotional templates we learned in childhood. If you had a parent who was inconsistent, unavailable, or overbearing, your nervous system internalized a pattern. Relationships are unstable. Love must be earned, or closeness is suffocating. Without awareness, these patterns become your script for adult relationships. You don't fall in love. You fall into familiarity. We seek what feels familiar, not what is healthy. That's why we often confuse attachment for love. It feels intense. It feels necessary. But it's often just our nervous system trying to resolve unfinished stories from the past. Can we unhook the cling? Yes. And it begins with a bold and terrifying act, turning inward. You cannot truly love another person if you are clinging to them for validation, identity, or emotional regulation. That's not partnership. It's outsourcing your inner work. Healing begins when we learn to soothe our own nervous systems, to witness our needs without shame, and to stand in the fire of loneliness without reaching for someone else to put it out. From a neuroscience perspective, this involves rewiring, and the brain can rewire. Mindfulness meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex, allowing you to pause before reacting from old patterns. Somatic therapy helps you process the nervous system's fight-or-flight responses trapped in the body. Secure relationships, including friendships and mentors, help co-regulate your nervous system in a healthy way, allowing your brain to learn that connection doesn't have to hurt. In time, your body begins to believe the truth. You are safe, on your own. A modern epidemic. Trauma bonding disguised as romance. In a world saturated with romantic ideals and unresolved childhood wounds, attachment-based relationships are rampant and often encouraged. We mistake volatility for passion. We glamorize jealousy as proof of caring. We interpret anxiety as chemistry. But real love is often boring at first. It doesn't spike your cortisol. It doesn't ghost you for 3 days. It feels like calm, like coming home. So many people reject it because it doesn't feel like love. That's because their version of love is just attachment trauma on repeat. It's time to end the cycle. The call to relearn love. Here's the wake-up call. You might not be in love. You might be addicted. You might be repeating an emotional loop that has nothing to do with the person in front of you, and everything to do with an unhealed past. That's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to stop calling it love. Let's get honest about what's driving us. Let's stop glamorizing codependence. Let's be brave enough to differentiate between what soothes us and what serves us. True love requires self-love first, not the Instagram version, but the gritty, soul-deep process of learning how to be with yourself, especially when no one else is there. Final thought. What now? Take a breath. Think about the people in your life. Are you with them because you love them, or because you fear being without them? If that question rattles you, good. Discomfort is the first sign that something is waking up inside you. The version of you that's ready to stop clinging and start loving. You don't have to become a monk or a neuroscientist to start unraveling your patterns. You just have to be willing to pause, to notice, and to stay with yourself when the old itch to reach for someone else comes knocking. Love isn't a cage. It's not an addiction. And it's not a reward for being perfect. It's a state of being that starts within. So ask yourself, am I loving or just holding on? The difference could change your life. Want to know more? In the next video, we'll explore the science of emotional unavailability, why we chase people who won't commit, and how to rewire your brain for secure connection. Because real love doesn't hurt, it heals.